The first time I saw the mountains again, I nearly turned back. I'd been driving for 9 hours, the last of them on a washboard dirt road, and by the time the peaks appeared through the haze, they looked less like an invitation and more like a dare. I'd quit my job 2 weeks earlier. Burnout, grief, some tangled mix of both, and decided I'd spend a month alone in the wilderness. I told myself it was for clarity, for healing. In truth, it was because I didn't know what else to do. The city had started to feel like a trap. Constant noise, endless screens, people talking but never listening. I figured if I stripped away everything comfortable, maybe I'd find what was left of me. When I parked at the trailhead, the silence hit me like a wall. Not the absence of sound, but that deep, living quiet you only hear in remote places. The sigh of wind through pines, the faint trickle of a creek somewhere unseen. I hefted my pack, heavier than I remembered from the gear shop, and started walking. My plan was simple: hike north through the high country for 3 weeks, resupply at a tiny outpost, then finish the loop back to the car. No signal, no distractions, just me, my thoughts, and the land. The first days felt almost holy. I rose with the sun, made oatmeal on the stove, and watched light spill down granite walls like liquid gold. I could feel the weight of the city melting off me, one knot at a time. But by the end of the first week, the glow had faded. My feet ached. My food tasted like cardboard. The constant solitude pressed on me like the altitude itself, thin, breathless. Every night, as I unrolled my sleeping bag, I'd catch myself imagining the simplest luxuries: the hiss of a shower, the smell of coffee from a corner cafe, the low murmur of other people's voices. I missed things I thought I hated. I started to wonder if I'd made a mistake. One night it rained hard, a cold, relentless storm that soaked through everything. My tent leaked, my sleeping bag clung to me like a damp rag. Lightning clawed across the ridgeline, and for a moment I thought about packing up and heading back to the car in the morning. I could almost see it: the road home, the hot water, the familiar buzz of electricity. I lay there in the dark, shivering, feeling that pull toward comfort like gravity. But when the storm finally broke and the sky lightened to grey, I unzipped the tent and stepped outside. The whole valley was steaming in the dawn. Clouds drifted between the trees like ghosts. My hands were numb, but I couldn't stop staring. The rain had polished every rock, every needle, every leaf. I breathed in deep, the air sharp and clean. And for the first time in months, I felt something simple and true: alive. The next stretch was the hardest, those middle days when the novelty was gone and I was too far from both the trailhead and any resupply to turn back. Every mile demanded something from me. My shoulders ached where the straps dug in. Blisters formed beneath my socks, burst and reformed. Food became rationed mathematics: how much oatmeal I could spare for breakfast, whether to risk another handful of trail mix before camp. It's strange how the wilderness humbles you, not through grand beauty, but through small, relentless discomforts. The cold mornings, the mosquitoes whining at dusk, the way a single wet boot could sour your entire day. Still, somewhere inside that grind, I began to find rhythm. My thoughts, once tangled and sharp, started to stretch out, uncoil. I stopped replaying the noise of my old life. The office lights, the deadlines, the phone always buzzing. I stopped hearing my boss's voice, or the steady hum of traffic outside my apartment window. Instead, I heard wind moving through alpine meadows, the chirp of pikers between the rocks, the thrum of my own heart. It wasn't peaceful exactly. It was raw, exposed, but it was real. Some afternoons, I'd sit by the trail and just watch light change. Once, I saw a storm roll in from the west, moving like a living thing. The air grew electric, and thunder cracked so close it vibrated in my chest. I crouched beneath an outcrop, clutching my pack, soaked to the bone and laughing. For a moment, I wasn't a man running away from anything. I was just a piece of the landscape, drenched and breathing, and entirely present. That night, I built a small fire, coaxing wet twigs into flame. I cooked a thin soup and ate slowly, tasting every spoonful. The sky cleared, and stars spilled across it like frost. I found myself thinking about the city again, how easy everything was there, and how empty it felt too. Back then, I'd fill my days with meetings, coffee runs, texts that meant nothing. Here, I counted time in the scrape of boots on dirt and the angle of the sun. But the quiet wasn't always kind. Some evenings, grief came back sharp and sudden. The loss I'd tried not to name when I left. I'd stare into the fire and feel it rise, heavy and wordless, until it passed. There were no distractions here, no walls to hide behind. The wilderness has a way of stripping you bare. It shows you what you've carried all along. When sleep came that night, it was deep and dreamless. I woke before dawn, chilled but calm. The fire was out, the stars fading. I packed up slowly, breathing in the scent of wet pine and ash. Ahead of me, the trail climbed toward another ridge, shrouded in mist. I tightened my pack, glanced once toward the horizon, and started walking. By the 12th day, the quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, like a pressure on my chest. The trail had risen into thin, stony country, where trees thinned to twisted pines, and the air smelled faintly of snow. My body had grown lean and sore, and I could feel the edges of hunger sharpening me. I'd lost track of dates entirely. Some mornings I woke disoriented, not sure what mountain or valley I was in. That might have frightened me once, but now it just felt distant. Still, the doubts began to creep back. I caught myself daydreaming about the city again. Small things at first. The taste of a greasy burger, the hum of a laundromat dryer, the soft weight of clean sheets. Then, bigger things. The ease of conversation, the warm light of a bar on a Friday night, the simple relief of knowing what tomorrow might bring. Out here, there were no clocks, no signals, no safety nets. Just my breath in the thin air and the ache in my knees. I started thinking about quitting. That temptation came to a head one evening as the sky closed in with a cold drizzle. I was following a narrow ridge when fog rolled up from the valley, thick and blinding. The world shrank to a few feet of grey, my map was damp, my compass needle sluggish. For an hour, I wandered, searching for a place to camp, until I stumbled on a patch of level ground near a scraggly tree. I pitched the tent badly, half collapsed in the wind, and crawled inside, shaking with exhaustion. I sat there, listening to rain patter on the nylon, clutching the last of my trail mix. For the first time, I said it aloud. I could just go home. The words sounded strange in the dim light, almost tender. I imagined calling a friend, catching the next bus back. A shower, a hot meal, my bed. It seemed so simple. I could almost feel the relief of it, the warmth spreading through my bones. But then I looked at my hands, cracked, dirt-stained, strong. I thought of how far I'd come, every blister, every cold night. I realized that if I left now, I wouldn't just be leaving the trail. I'd be turning my back on the very thing I came here to find. The thought hit me hard. My eyes stung, though I wasn't sure from rain or something deeper. So I stayed. I boiled a little water, drank it hot and plain, and waited out the storm. In the early hours, the wind died and the fog thinned. When I crawled out of the tent, the ridge was glowing with first light. Below me, clouds pulled in the valley like a silver sea. The silence was no longer crushing. It was vast, infinite. I stood there, barefoot on the cold rock, and for the first time since I'd left the city, I felt no urge to run from anything. The next morning, something had shifted. The air felt clearer, as if the storm had scoured more than just the ridge. My body still hurt, the usual ache in my calves, the stiffness in my shoulders. But my mind was oddly still. I packed up camp with slow, deliberate movements, noticing things I hadn't before. The pale green lichen tracing the stones, the sound of water trickling somewhere deep below, a hawk gliding in lazy circles above the valley. The world hadn't changed overnight, but the way I saw it had. The trail wound down into a basin, lush with meadow grass and streams that braided through the rocks. I took off my boots and walked barefoot for a while, wading through cold water. It hurt at first, then felt clean, purifying. My reflection shimmered in a pool. A leaner, rougher version of myself, sunburnt and scruffy, but alive. I caught myself smiling, and it startled me. It had been a long time since I'd done that without forcing it. As I walked, memories came in fragments. My father's laugh, the smell of his workshop, the hospital room where I'd last seen him. That was the grief I'd carried here, the one I hadn't said aloud. I'd thought solitude might erase it, or at least silence it. But the wilderness doesn't erase anything. It holds you still until you stop fighting. I sat on a boulder by the stream and let the memories come, raw and unfiltered. The sound of water filled the spaces where words used to be, and for once, I didn't try to push them away. That evening, I built a small fire in the meadow's edge and watched the last light slip behind the peaks. My dinner was simple: instant rice, a few scraps of jerky, but it felt like a feast. I thought about how strange it was that hardship could feel like healing. Back home, I'd tried to numb everything: noise, work, screens. But here, pain and peace lived side by side. You could suffer and still be grateful. You could grieve and still move forward. Later, when the stars came out, I lay on my back and traced constellations I barely remembered from childhood. The Milky Way stretched across the sky like a trail of its own, leading somewhere endless. I thought of my father then, not as a loss, but as part of that vastness. Maybe that's what I'd been chasing all along. Not escape, but connection. When I finally crawled into my sleeping bag, the night was cold but gentle. Crickets hummed in the grass. I closed my eyes and felt the rhythm of my breath blending with the earth's quiet pulse. For the first time, I wasn't counting the days until I'd go home. I was already there, in the truest sense of the word. The final stretch of trail came almost without warning. I woke one morning to a light frost on the meadow, and a quiet that felt different. Less like solitude, more like farewell. My food bag was nearly empty, my clothes stiff with dust and sweat, and my boots worn thin. Yet I felt stronger than I had in years. The sun rose slow and gold between the ridges as I packed up camp for the last time. I didn't hurry. Each motion felt like a small ritual. Folding the tarp, tightening the straps, stamping out the last trace of the fire. The trail dropped toward the lowlands, where pines grew dense again, and the sound of distant water followed me. I knew that somewhere ahead lay the road, the faint hum of engines, maybe even a signal bar or two. Civilization. Part of me was eager for it. Warm food, a soft bed, the chance to hear another human voice. But the thought also carried a quiet dread. I wondered if I'd be able to stand the noise again, the rush and chatter of people, always half elsewhere. That afternoon, I stopped on a bluff overlooking the valley. The world below looked impossibly small. Toy houses, faint curls of smoke, a silver thread of river glinting through the trees. I sat for a long while, letting the wind move through me. My grief was still there, of course, it would always be, but it no longer felt like a wound. It had settled into something steadier, like the river below, deep, slow, and alive. When I finally stepped off the trailhead and saw my dusty old car waiting, I didn't feel triumph. I felt gratitude. I tossed my pack inside, then paused, leaning against the door, breathing in the last of that thin mountain air. I realized the wilderness hadn't fixed me. It hadn't given me answers or grand revelations. It had simply stripped everything down until I could hear the truth that had been buried under all the noise. Life isn't meant to be escaped. It's meant to be lived, fully and honestly, wherever you stand. Driving back toward town, I caught myself glancing in the rear-view mirror again and again, watching the peaks shrink behind me. Part of me ached to turn back, but I didn't. The road wound downward, the trees thickened, and soon I was surrounded by signs of the world I'd left. The glow of a gas station, the faint signal on my phone. I didn't reach for it, not yet. I rolled down the window instead and let the wind rush in, carrying the scent of pine and rain and distant stone. That night, when I finally reached the edge of the city, I parked and sat for a while, engine off, lights dim. The buildings shimmered ahead, all glass and hum, familiar yet foreign. I smiled, tired, content, unafraid. I'd gone into the wild to get away from life, and somewhere along the way, I'd found my way back to it.